time to tantalize your earbuds with creative makers and shakers. It's Creative Living, the podcast with Jane Klaus.
This is Creative Living, where we help you live your most creative life. I'm Jane Klaus. Now, on the podcast and pretty much in life, I love to dive into the world of creativity by exploring the stories and telling the stories and the journeys of artists and makers and really true visionaries. And today, I have got a very special guest. So before we get started, I want you to imagine capturing the beauty of nature every single day for over a decade. Yeah, that's a lot of work, but that's exactly what our guest, Mary Jo Hoffman, has been doing for the last 12 years. Mary Jo is a former aeronautical engineer who's turned artist, photographer, and is now an author. Her book, Still the Art of Noticing, is packed full of 275 of her most stunning photos and essays to go along with them that'll make you see the world in a whole new light and maybe even inspire you to live more creatively. I'm so happy to welcome Mary Jo Hoffman to Creative Living. Hi, Mary Jo.
Hi, Jane. That was a fantastic intro. Thank you. I
Well,
loved it.
all true. I want people to imagine what you did and see if we could actually even do something every single day for 12 years. But you have a very signature style of creativity. But I'm going to hit you with the hard question first, Mary Jo.
Okay.
What does creativity mean to you?
Oh, that is so hard. Truly. Well, creating something from nothing, using your imagination. I mean, even if you just sit and daydream, you've created something from nothing. You've created something, a story in your imagination. That's creativity. I think we're all creative. We all do. And for some of us, it gets shut down early. I'm not sure why, but we're all creative. And so, yeah, I just say creating something from nothing through your imagination.
I totally agree. I always tell everyone, even my lawyer friends and doctor friends who would never do anything creative, or they say they're not doing anything creative. I'm like, yeah, you're creative. Everyone is creative. Let's just sit down and do whatever it is we're doing that is creative. You make it up. That's what creativity is, right?
I agree. Creating a life is creative.
Yes.
We're all creative. We are
Yes.
all creative. Yes.
So why do you think nature is such a great place to start when you're looking for creativity? Because I think it's the place to start.
It is. If you read, I love reading biographies of artists. If you read many, in the end, they all come back and say nature is their inspiration, right? At some point, almost all will say fundamentally nature's their inspiration. It is the ultimate inspiration. It's infinite. You never tire. You never get to the bottom of it. It's there. It's around us, how we evolved. It's the ultimate creative source, I think.
I love that you said it's the ultimate creative source, because it is the source. And it is, I think, really like it's this nurture and nature. Like you go out there, they want you to take a nature bath so you can get more creativity. They want to put your feet and get grounded and be in nature, because that's really what connects you to everything.
Now that we can look at how the brain lights up for anything, you put people in nature and all sorts of good things start happening in the brain, and our sympathetic nervous system calms down. I mean, we evolved to be in nature and be surrounded by nature. And when you go out in nature, where you're zooming in and, looking close and then zooming out, telescoping in and out, that's really good for the brain. So a little bit of time in nature every day is good for the health.
Have you always been a nature lover, like your whole life?
Yeah, I was the tomboy who grew up playing outside all day long. The edge of suburban development in the 70s. I was born in 64. Outside from sunrise to sunset until we got called home for dinner. And yes, I loved nature from a very young age.
Yeah, playing with worms, picking up different animals and looking at all the flowers you probably know. Well, by now you know what every single flower and weed and the name of it and where it's come from. But did you always know those things?
No. So I was at the edge of urban development. So I played in the woods, mostly in the woods. a master fort builder. I think I should have become an architect, quite frankly. But anyway, so flowers and gardening, no. But in terms of learning the names of things, I have, because I've been doing this for 12 years and paying such close attention, but it's not my strong suit. I find subjects that interest me visually, and then I come home and then I make my photo and I post it to my blog still. And it's at that point where I Google and find the name. And because when in the post, I always put the name of the subject and the Latin name in case anyone's interested. And so that's that's my education, is 12 years of one subject a day, learning the name, learning whether it's native, learning whether it's invasive, learning whether it's, a transplant from somewhere else. And then, so yes, I would consider myself a naturalist today, but memorizing Latin names is not one of my strong suits at all. Not at all.
Well, I mean, I think that's great because your project was also a bit of education for you and for everybody that was following you on your blog. So let's talk about your project, stillblog.net. That's where your blog lives. Your first image was sent out into the universe on January 1st, 2012. Correct. What was the original vision you had for the blog? Or was it just like, I'm going to put this one picture up and see what happens?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So I was in my 40s, had been working corporate aerospace. I was an aerospace research scientist, which is a rocket scientist. And so I worked in the aerospace industry in research. I was an aeronautical and astronautical engineer. Those are all lots of big words. Yeah. But I had left that job after 17 years because of corporate takeovers and family planning. And my husband and I had taken our young kids to live in southern France for 6 months. We had taken a sabbatical. And it was the first time in my adult life I hadn't been working. I worked all through college and then went straight into corporate research. And suddenly I had free time. I was also a creative kid, a kind of a maker. Not, my friends that knew me then wouldn't have said that, but I sewed, I baked, I did crafts. I was a maker by inclination. And so when I finally had some free time in my mid-40s, on a sabbatical in a rented house in southern France, my husband had similar ambitions, always had wanted to write. And so we said, let's practice for retirement. And, because we were going to go back to our busy lives in 6 months, right? But we were going to practice for retirement when we would someday get to do creative work, right? And what happened is I had been an amateur photographer. So I crafted one of these one-a-day projects that were popular then, still popular because they're extremely powerful. And I chose 1 year. For 1 year, I was going to photograph found nature, and it turns out this very stylized way, and post it to a blog. And I decided to name the blog Still, as in like still life photography. I started that on January 1st. In my mind, it was a calendar year, 1 year commitment, 1 year project. And by 6 months in, the project had gotten a lot of attention, media attention, and I kept going. So here I am 12 and a half years later and over 4,000 images later. Yeah. And I haven't missed a day.
That's a lot. And we're going to get into that. But I mean, over the last 12 years, spending so much time discovering nature and taking photos for your project, for your blog. I mean, I just have to, did you also create a clone of yourself to get everything else done? I mean, you have to live life like every single day.
Right. Life happens. Life happens. It does happen, and in those 12 and a half years, they've been fairly calm years for me. However, my dad did pass away, and and my mom's 88 now, and I'm the primary for her, and which has meant a lot of unexpected emergency room visits in the last 3 years. And so life happens. And what happened is I devised the project so that the minimum required to not break the chain was simple. So it's found nature on a white background, and I can literally be in a hospital and pick a leaf off of a potted plant, hold it against a white wall and take a photo, and I haven't broken the chain.
And you're good to go.
And I'm good to go. So I do that a lot sometimes. I mean, life happens. Ironically,
Smart.
some of the busiest I've ever been is since I launched this book in May in the last 12 years. I mean, I've been crazy busy with speaking engagements and various things. And so the last 4 weeks since I launched my book, I've been doing a lot of holding a potted plant leaf in front of a white wall and calling it good.
And that's okay. I love that you did that. Using the white background, I mean, it really does just single out this one item, this one piece of nature that you found for the day. But in the long run, 12 years later, here we are today. You're super busy on this book tour and doing speaking events, Take Care Mom. It's really helped you out. Did you kind of foresee that the white was because I can then do this anywhere, or was it because of a stylistic photography thing that you wanted to do?
Oh, good question. Because it does make the project easier. And
yeah,
is one of the reasons I haven't broken the chain in 12 and a half years. But I picked it for aesthetic reasons. So I'm a minimalist. I like Scandinavian aesthetic, and I like Scandinavian design. And so if you look at my images, they're very graphic on a bright white background. It's sort of like a modern botanical print, if you will, a modern take on a botanical print. So I chose it as an aesthetic for aesthetic reasons. It's interesting. I learned I was an amateur photographer and not professional. And I think that honestly was to my advantage, because after I had started the project, I had more than one professional photographer tell me, oh, you can't photograph on a white background. That's commercial photography. That's considered commercial photography. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know. And I do it because I like it. I also wanted, for me, the experience of the blog was very important. So when you arrived at the blog, I wanted a seamless scroll through the unfolding seasons. So I'm taking an image a day. So if you go there, and I'm trying to be as seasonal as I can. February in Minnesota gets a little tricky.
I was going to ask about the winter months in Minnesota.
I do it. But even by February, even I'm bored with winter stems poking out of snow. But anyway, I try to be seasonal. So as you scroll through the blog, you should get a seasonal unfolding. And I wanted the scroll to be seamless. And if I had like a gray background, it's very hard to match grays. So the only thing that would allow me to be seamless is true white or true black. Right. And so I wanted this Still Blog's a very quiet corner of the internet. It's very calm, very quiet. Look at one thing at a time, and with this seamless scroll. And so it still is to that day. The blog hasn't changed at all since it was built. As a matter of fact, I keep waiting for it to crash because it's in WordPress and I don't know how to fix it if it crashes.
No, everyone's going there. Everyone's going there because you're all over the media and everyone wants to know about Mary Jo. Yeah. So you better watch out for that. But no, the scroll is cool because you do see the seasons and the amount of time that you put into, really this passion. And you did this every single day for 12 years.
Yes.
And I get it. You made it easy. You did it everywhere you had to do it. Was there ever a moment when you're like, I just don't have time today, or I can't find the right subject for my picture today? Or can you do a couple days in advance?
Yeah. It's almost every week where I think, I don't know what to photograph. Even like this week, I'm having that experience. It's high summer. It's June. It's so lush. We've had so much rain. It's just like a wall of green out there right now. And I keep looking out at the wall of green thinking, what am I going to pick today? So, so even in high summer, I have those moments. A lot of days the day gets away from me. It's the sun. I shoot with natural light. So the sun is setting and I say, oh my goodness, I haven't taken a still blog photo. And my husband laughs and he says, every day, honey. And he turns around and walks away. And so,
thanks for your help.
Yeah. Yep. So on those days, I dash out. I happen to live on 3 wooded acres. I don't think you would need to do this kind of project, but I do. So I dash out into the yard, look around and I grab something to photograph. And the interesting thing I've learned over the years is sometimes those dashed off last minute photos end
Yeah,
up being
the
some of the
best.
best,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, of
It's
course.
crazy. All I'm doing is not breaking the chain. I don't care about the quality of the photo so much or the subject. I just want to make sure I don't break the chain. It's been too long now. I'm not
No,
going to
you
break the
can't.
chain. No, I
You
can't.
can't. No, you can't.
No. So I dash out, I grab something, I photograph it, and sure enough, it can end up being one of my better photos. And I think there's something about, that deadline that shuts
Yep.
off the inner critic.
Yep.
And, so I'm a big believer in the everyday because I've seen it happen, right? I've seen that even when you don't want to, even when the day got away from you, even when the sun's about to set, if you make that creative effort, you can be surprised. So yeah.
I love it. I always tell people just spend 1 hour being creative, and then I don't care what you do the rest of the day. Spend 30 minutes, because you have that sense of satisfaction that you get when you are creative. When I always say, when you make it yourself, when you just let your body and your brain just be in flow with wherever it goes. And I love the idea, because you had a goal, you had a mission, you had, I'm doing this, I'm not breaking the chain. A lot of people like, oh, I'll do it today, but I don't have to pick it up. So maybe this is a great way for people to start being creative by saying, I'm going to do this every day for a week.
Give yourself, those 30-day and 100-day challenges are still really popular, and they're really popular because they work, and they work for a whole bunch of reasons, but they really do work. And you had asked earlier about whether I work ahead, and I used to, in the first few years of the project, I had a little folder on the corner of my iMac that said just in case, right? And it had a couple images in it that in case the day got away from me, I could post those. What I found, and I think this is key too, is that was more disruptive than helpful, because it was harder to stop and start than to just commit to doing it every day. I haven't had a just in case folder on my desktop for probably 8 years.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, I was right before I got on the podcast with you, I made today's photo. So I find 5 minutes of every day to make a photo.
And you just take the photo and you post it and you move on.
Yeah. I mean, I edit it to bring the background to bright white. And then at some point before bed, I post it, and I set the timer so it updates overnight. So yeah, I mean, and that's the other key for my specific project. I could break each of those little steps, find your subject, make your photo, edit the photo, and post the photo into tiny little increments sprinkled throughout the day. And we all have 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. We all do. And so I instead of scrolling or whatever you do when you have a 5-minute wait or downtime, I do one of those little steps.
And you make it easy on yourself too. I love that. So let's give our friends an idea of some of the photos and some of the images and some of the objects that you have captured over the years. I'm going to tell you what I saw in my research.
Okay.
And then you can add some that I missed. And let's see, a pile of rocks, mountains of leaves, lined up shells, acorns, pine cones, birds' nests, vegetables, flowers, animal claws, I think I saw.
Yeah.
Insect wings, grass, ducklings, weeds. Is there anything that you think is not beautiful enough to be on the blog? Or how do you make all of those things beautiful? What am I missing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I will, any found nature. So nothing's off limits. I do not a lot, but I do roadkill. So some of my most popular images are from roadkill, a coyote and a blue jay wing.
Do you put it on white background then? You pick up the coyote?
I slid my white background underneath. Yeah. And it's one of my more popular images. Anyway, I do roadkill. Everything is a candidate. Every subject's a candidate. And my criteria are, it either has to be beautiful or it has to be interesting. So there are some images I just post because they're so interesting. They're not particularly beautiful, but when I can get an image that is both interesting and beautiful, then I got a keeper. Then I got a winner.
Have you ever had doubles? I mean, if you get a weed and you're like, well, this is interesting and it's beautiful. And then, I don't know, 10 years down the road, you're like, I'm going to use this weed because it's interesting. I don't remember what I did last week. And even if I posted something on my website or any social media, I still don't remember.
Yeah. I repeat subjects and after 12 years. Yeah. So I do like there's certain subjects because of where I am in Minneapolis in the upper Midwest that are some of my favorites, milkweed pods, cattails, because I happen to have a big cattail bed outside my house. But fiddlehead ferns, for example, I do those every spring. I will never tire of photographing fiddlehead ferns, and every year is different. So usually if I revisit a subject, I'll try to revisit it in a different season.
Right.
So if I did it in spring, I'll do it in summer or fall, but I will revisit subjects, especially if they're perennial favorites.
Yeah, I think that's totally permissible because you're never going to film or photograph them in the same way. They're always going to look different.
Every day is different. I could photograph as a matter of fact, I have tried to do this. I had a collaboration with Target Corporation, and we were putting this lineup of beach rocks with stripes, on a shower curtain. And the image I had done early in the project with a lesser quality camera. And because we're going to make a shower curtain, which is 100 inches wide, I wanted a higher resolution image. So I still had those beach rocks, that pile of beach rocks. So I recreated the image, rephotographed it with a better camera. And it never, ever, I did it 50 times, different windows, different lighting, different times of day. And it was never as good as that first photo. And I can't tell you why. There was something about the softness of the light, the angle. I don't know.
All of it.
They were very close, but not as inviting as that first image.
It's fascinating. You said you still have those beach rocks. So do you keep a lot of these different objects that you find in nature? And does that consider you, or does that make you a nature hoarder?
That's a good question. I am not a nature hoarder. I'm not a hoarder. I'm a tosser by disposition. So 99% of the subjects I photograph and they go right back outside. Otherwise, I mean, it's every day. So otherwise I would be drowning. Yeah. And I have this 3 acres of wooded land. So they just go right back outside, turn into compost. There is a few things I collect. Beach rocks, well, only striped beach rocks. Sea glass. I do have a box of bird nests. I do have a box of pine cones, but that's only because I just had a commission for a restaurant to do a big pine cone photos, and I don't think that will be able to stay. It's too big a box, and I don't want to store it. So, but I do keep certain collections. Yes.
I have about 1 trillion cicadas. If you'd like me to send you them,
I actually would. We don't have them here in Minnesota. I mean, we get a few in the summer, but not a lot. I know you guys can sweep them off your car like snow, right?
Sweep them off the car like snow. So I'm in Chicago. It is summertime. We have cicadas, and they're dive bombing me. They're all over the trees. They're all over every single thing in my backyard. Even going on a walk, I have to go around. So if you would like some cicadas, I have cicada wings.
Send me a cigar box full of cicada skins.
I have cigar boxes
I would love
too.
it.
Yeah, I'll do it.
I would love it. It's not a subject I don't think I've.
You like their wings.
I know. I think I have photographed them because they have them in southern France, not in Minnesota. I mean, we do, but you don't find them. They're very few.
I have them all. They're driving me crazy. So let me ask you this, because I want to talk about the book, Still the Art of Noticing. Every single day, that's over 4,000 photos. You put 275 in the book. How could you pick your favorites?
Yeah, that was the hardest part. I did it 2 ways, right? I have this out of control portfolio with 4,000 images. I can't even find stuff in it. Okay. It's of course I didn't know this project was going to go on this long.
You're not
so
labeling all of them.
I didn't tag it. I didn't structure it right. It's just this folder full of stuff. And then, so what I did a pass through the portfolio and I had a folder called Still Book Worthy, right? And I was throwing images in there that I thought were worthy of being published in a book. And then I looked at that folder and I thought, I don't see like a rhyme or reason to this collection. They're my best photos,
Right.
but I don't see a rhyme or reason to them. So I abandoned that approach of just taking the best photos. And then I went with writing my essays first and then picking the images that illustrate the essays. And that's what ended up working for me. So
That makes
about a
sense.
dozen of my best photos didn't make it in the book.
Ah,
Because it's interesting. It's interesting. But I'm super pleased with how the book came out. I'm
maybe
really
there's
pleased.
another book in the works. There has to be,
I
or a
love it.
shorter
I would
book.
love it. I
Sure,
would
with
love it.
like the 12 that didn't make it, and you can write bigger essays
There
on
you go.
those.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
this
Yeah.
again, you already talked about working with the Target Corporation. I saw some of your lettering. You would write words with the different found
Mhm.
objects. I'm obsessed with the one that says creativity because it's creativity.
Yeah.
Can people license them from you? Can people buy them from you?
So I sell a lot of my images,
Mm.
and I have about 100 designers, professional designers, or what are called art consultancies that use my images in
Mhm.
their projects. And so I get a couple requests a week from them
Wow.
for 3 or 4 images that they're going to put in some clubhouse in North Carolina or something.
Mhm.
So I do sell to professionals. I don't regularly sell to individuals. I will if somebody really has a special request, like it's for a wedding invitation or
Right.
something like that. If someone really wants it, and the only reason I don't is the portfolio is unwieldy, and it takes a lot of my time to do the email back and forth. This is this the image you want? What size do you want? Da 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 da.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that individual sales I do rarely, but I do if somebody really wants one. But I do sell to professionals every
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. So your hobby kind of turned into a business. But when I ask back to the book, because I'm getting off on a whole business track and I really want to know about your creativity, because I want to help everybody, because everyone's thinking, well, I don't understand. Like, what does that mean? And, you had this daily practice for 12 years and you
Yep.
put these beautiful images in a book of what you discovered and what you saw. And you talk a lot about the art of noticing. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think, at some point, anyone who does visual arts, any artist, whether it's painting, graphic design, photography, sketching, at some point, you realize that there's a famous book on learning to draw called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And it's a classic. And Betty Edwards, the author, has said, if you can sign your name, you can draw. You have the technical skill to draw. But what you have to do is learn to see. And it's the same with any of the visual arts, whether it's photography or what. The visual arts eventually all come to the same conclusion: is learning to see, learning to notice is the hardest part of the creative process. So it's training the eye to see.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like fashion designers. They're putting together outfits and you have to see how that's hitting a body form.
Right.
So, and some people can see it and some people can't, or like an interior designer, anything that you're visually putting together.
Right.
Mixed media.
It's exactly right. Some people can walk into a room, an empty house, and see it all. Other people can't. Most people can't do that. And so, it's learning to see. And, I'm looking at a wall of green right now, and every day I have to find something to photograph. And so learning to train the eye to see, look at that visual overwhelm of, this wall of green, and then training the eye to pick out 1 or 2 subjects or a dozen subjects to make a composition. That takes more concentration and, well, in my case, presentness, right? Mindfulness.
Sure.
Than, pulling the shutter on the camera.
The mindfulness and presentation, and still is the blog, and still is the title of the book. And you talked about still art or still images, and that's what these are. But it's also a play on words to being still minded, still in your day, still just being still. We're never still. Our minds never
Exactly
stop.
right.
So has your daily practice of being still and discovering still, has that improved your creativity? Has that lowered your stress level? What do you think about being still? Why is it important for all of us to learn from that?
Yeah. I truly believe that I stumbled into a practice, a simple practice that is turned out to be really profound.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the requirement, attention, the attentiveness to find a new subject every day required me to be so present at least for 5 minutes of every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that became essentially a mindfulness practice. And so one of the first benefits I got from the project, and the reason, quite frankly, I never stopped, is it turned into a mindfulness practice that I didn't want to stop. But then, even then, it kept unfolding. This project kept unfolding in depths and depths and depths. Because after I realized it had turned into this mindfulness practice where I had to be present for at least part of every day to find a subject. Then suddenly I started to have this entirely new relationship with my place, the place I live, where I grew up.
Yeah.
So in the good Midwestern fashion, moved back to the place I grew up. And so here I am in this environment I've known for 50 years. And yet I was discovering it anew with this new level of heightened attention, right? So suddenly I call it placefulness. I have this nuanced now relationship with my place. I actually borrowed the term from Jenny Odell in her best-selling book, How to Do Nothing. Do you remember that during the pandemic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
She coined the term placefulness, and I have run with it because
That's
it
good.
spoke to me so deeply, because she was saying for her, the Rose Garden in Berkeley, California was her place. And that was it became an antidote to this anxiety and kind of itchy feeling we all get when we spend too much time online. And so to spend time in this rose garden became her antidote to that. And she called it placefulness. And the same thing happened to me with this project, which is just a little bit of time in nature, being present, being really present, not just relaxing in nature, but being present with nature, and then getting this nuanced relationship with it led to this kind of placefulness that I don't want to go all woo woo on you here.
Get woo woo, girl. Let's go. I'm all about the woo. I love it. I spent a week in the jungle getting woo woo. Let's go.
So anyway, I felt it was like sort of my expression is sort of an on ramp to the sacred.
I think it's great.
So I feel like this project unleashed a profound series of insights. Yeah.
It's like the transformation from when you started to this point, and this like practice that you did every day. And again, you could say it's like meditation. People do their daily practice of yoga. You just happen to be in, your placefulness just happen to be in nature. And then you're sharing that with if you didn't share it with everybody, you would still probably have that same transformation mentally, physically.
For sure.
I think that it's really, really important to think about that, for all of us, because we're so busy and we get our itchy heads when we're online all too much and we get anxious. So just putting your feet in the ground or finding out what you do every day to make you transform to the real you. Because we don't like to go there. Sometimes it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Before we got on, Jane and I were talking about the Mayo Clinic because it's near where I live. And my husband just did one of these wellness checkups there. And the doctor there was saying that the research on mindfulness meditation is now saying that, so when you meditate, most people, it's on your breath or you're calming your thoughts, or you're doing a mantra to quiet the thoughts. It's all inward focused. And they were saying that the news research is an outwardly focused meditation might even transcend, like the inward focus one might be like a substate of then the outward focus, which is to transcend yourself, to transcend the ego. And so it's interesting because I feel like my being present with nature, again, dumb luck or intuitive wisdom, call it what you will, but that it was an outwardly focused form of meditation. So, I think I stumbled into something really powerful.
I think you did too. And I love that you're sharing it with all of us. You talk about the term infraordinary.
Yeah.
Is that about noticing?
That is coined by a French philosopher in the 1970s. And it's about seeing below. So infra means below, infraordinary, below the ordinary. So it's the idea is, we become so habituated to our environment that we stop seeing the things that are right in front of us. So it's really funny because the Canadian Medical Association actually has a medical term for this, and they call it refrigerator blindness. And literally, and it's like,
open the fridge, we have nothing to eat.
Yeah, we don't have any mayo, and the mayo is like right there in front of
your
you.
face.
Yeah. So they actually literally call it refrigerator blindness. So this is when you don't see something, and you really don't see it. Your brain is wired to notice the differences in your environment. So when things become so habituated, so common, that you stop registering their existence at all. So when I teach courses, I'm giving people tips and tricks to see below the ordinary, to re-see what's always been right in front of them. And so because 12 years of doing this, for me now at this point, the most exciting for me is to take the most ordinary subject, the most ordinary subject, and photograph it in a striking way, elevate it, and then show it to people, in this elevated way. And so that they
make them see it in a different way.
Make them see it anew. Make them see it at all, right? It's the thing that they've been walking over on the sidewalk or the parking lot for that they don't even see anymore.
Ever. Yeah, because you're just busy doing other things. You're not noticing anything. This is a big thing. I lived in Arizona for several years, and in the beginning, I'm like, wow, look at the mountains. I mean, they're mountains. And then after 5 years, I didn't even see the mountains anymore.
Yeah. Yep. That happens, right?
Yeah. I mean, and you're talking about the little things that we would maybe not see in the first place, but it is a thing. Can you give us one tip on how to see these things?
Yeah, it is. The trick is very simple, but it works very profound. It's called I call it spotlighting. So it's just giving yourself a filter. You're using selective attention to spotlight a certain thing. So next time you go on a walk, for example, just notice the color blue. Just if you go on a walk around your block every evening, say, I'm going to tell you, pick a color, pick any color, except right now, don't pick green. Pick orange or blue.
Too much.
Yeah. And just say, okay, I'm going to go for a walk and I'm just going to notice blue. And you will see, I guarantee you will see your neighborhood with completely new eyes. And you can do it. You don't have to do it with sight. You can do it with sound. I'm only going to listen for birds.
Yeah.
And, and so that means you're going to drown out all of the traffic noise, everything. I'm just going to listen to birds. So just give yourself a spotlight filter and then focus your selective attention, and it will open up to you your ordinary environment in a way. You
just got to try it.
Yeah. You'll be surprised. It really works.
And we're all that's our homework, friends. We all have to do that when we go on our walks. You talk about being a former aeronautical engineer. I worked in radio forever and ever and ever. And when I would be stuck in radio and everyone was going out for happy hour or going to see the rock show, I would say, I got to get blah, 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 or I have to still be on the air. And I'd be like, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, well, it's not rocket science. But wait, the person who can say, but it is rocket science, I can't leave. So as an aeronautical engineer, a rocket scientist, because that career is about design and innovation and learning, and figuring things out. Do you think that background influenced your approach to photography and art because there's room for innovation?
Yeah. First of all, most mathematicians, it's well known that they're also very good musicians. They go hand in hand. I think it's because they're both just abstract languages. Music, math are both abstractions. And so my engineering colleagues, and I worked in research, it was mostly PhDs, were some of the most creative people I knew. For sure. It's an interesting thing. People say to me quite often when they see that aerospace engineer, now published artist, left brain, right brain. And I do think I have that. Here's the thing. It's sort of like creativity. I think we all have it. We all had it, I should say. But at some point early on, whether it was in childhood or in college, we shut down part of it.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
we had to choose, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be a creative, or I'm going to be an engineer, and so I think we all naturally have those right brain, left brain connections, but they do atrophy. And I do think they do atrophy.
There's an experiment you can do, or a practice, or whatever, a project that you can do with a group, and you can say, or with a person, you give one group an art project or an idea or a sentence, come up with blank, let your 7-year-old self draw this, or let your 7-year-old self create this. What would it look like? What would it be? And then you give the same project to a group of people, just take them out of their job for a minute and ask them to do this. And the 7-year-olds are that mindset, and you ask them to be that way. They're typically way more, their answers are more creative. Their ideas are more out there. So you're right. I do think if you're not practicing it, it does atrophy, or we put it aside, we put it on the shelf, and maybe we close the door on that. But we don't need to.
We do. And we don't need to, and we're all capable of it. So, but yes, if you look at my images, you will see they're very gridded, very linear. The aerospace engineer comes through in my aesthetic. I say that my subjects have to be interesting. For me, they're interesting when I'm blown away by like engineering precision of them. You know what I mean? Or the mathematical pattern.
Yeah. Because that's where you're like, oh, look at that aspect of it, because it's engineering, or it's math, or it's linear. And that's how you see. Also, because you are a minimalist, you like things that are very, in line and perfect. Yeah, and it all makes sense. And you can see that.
It's a very specific aesthetic.
And the white background is all part of it.
Yeah.
What do you hope that this project has and will do to inspire the people who see it? How will you help people?
Great question. And I have to say, the book is doing incredibly well. It went into second printing within a week or two of Pub Day. I mean, the book is doing beyond my expectations by a ton, beyond my publisher's expectations. And I'm not saying this to brag right now, but what I think might be happening is I didn't write the book this way, but I think it is becoming a book about the creative process that people are finding really inspirational. And because my process is so simple, because I do it every day, and like I said, I can hold up a potted plant leaf in front of a white t-shirt or a white wall, and I haven't broken the chain. And it's the simplicity of that is people are finding really, really, really inspirational and within reach for them, So I get the sense that the book might be turning into sort of like one of those classic books on the creative process, because it's just the book is taking on a life of its own that nobody, including myself, expected. Again, I think I stumbled into a super simple process, that this dailiness that has really profound, it's very simple. And in order to make it work, you have to keep it simple. Like, don't overcomplicate what you're going to try and do every day. Keep it very simple. Commit to not breaking the chain. Forget about the results. Forget about the art. Forget about the quality of the drawing or the painting or the photo. Just commit to not breaking the chain. And I guarantee you profound things will happen. The art will get better, and your insights about you and your eye and what you like, all of that just comes out of the process when all you have to do is not break the chain, right? Just commit to not breaking, just keep it super simple. Just commit to not breaking the chain, but make sure that the minimum to not break the chain is really simple, because life does happen and days do get away from you. But you're still going to not break the chain on those days. You're still, like, if you commit to making a watercolor a day, if all you do is wet the brush, dip it in the pigment, and put a splotch on a piece of paper, you haven't broken the chain. And you can do that.
And
if you can
be
brush your
okay
teeth
with
every
that.
day.
Be okay with if it's just a splotch on the paper, or if it's a full masterpiece. Like, be okay that you did not break the chain.
You didn't break the chain.
It's just profound in all aspects of life, really and truly. Like, you can live better creatively in so many ways, which brings us full circle right back to the very first question. And what does creativity mean to you? And you said it's everything. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. We're all creative.
Yeah.
And we all have an imagination. If you're alive and living, you're creative, right? You've created your life. We're all creative.
Everything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I am so inspired right now. One last thing. What makes you smile the most when you wake up in the morning?
Good question. A clear calendar. I'll tell you, when I wake up in the morning, I don't know what I'm going to photograph. But if I find a subject, so every day is kind of like a treasure hunt for me. If I find a subject that I just know is going to be like really a great photo, and then I bring it home, I do my little simple setup under the skylights in the kitchen, and I look at that thing through the viewfinder, that puts a smile on my face still to this day, every day.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. I'm going to be thinking of you now when I take my walk out in nature and
there you go.
Try to find things that I think that Mary Jo would like. Okay. The book is Still, The Art of Noticing. Everybody needs to buy a copy. Order your copy now. Get two, because you'll lose one, or you're going to want to give one away as a gift.
Gift one.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people are doing.
Of course. It's a beautiful book. Tell everybody where we can get it.
Everywhere books are sold. My publisher is Phaidon. You can buy it from the publisher. It's on Amazon, literally worldwide. Everywhere books are sold. It's in a lot of museum shops and a lot of gift and home stores.
Beautiful. I'm so happy and proud of you. And we just met, so that's a lot.
Thanks, Jane.
If people want to find you, follow you on social media, go to your website, what are all those places?
Okay. The blog is called stillblog.net. And because I've been doing this every day for 12 and a half years, if you just type in Mary Jo and Still, it will be all me and my images. And the only place I'm active on social is Instagram. And there I'm under Mary Jo Hoffman.
Still, The Art of Noticing. Artist, photographer, author, Mary Jo Hoffman. Thank you so much for joining us on Creative Living.
Thanks, Jane. This was really fun. I really, really enjoyed this.
Live better creatively. For more inspiration, visit janeclouse.com. Thank you for listening.